Hello, hello, hello. Okay. So if you are tuning in, you are now seeing that former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested by federal authorities on Thursday night in connection with protests at a Minnesota church service earlier this month. Now this was happening a couple of weeks ago when they were having a protest in Minnesota for the ICE test because of the ICE agents that unalived Renee Green. And so during this protest, Don Lemon was out reporting because he has a YouTube channel that is really, really big right now. And he was reporting the protest and stumbled across a few people who were planning to walk into the church. Now, some of the people, one of the people happens to be one of the women was a starter of Black Lives Matter. They have found out that one of the head pastors in this church happens to be a ICE agent that was in a higher up field that was part of the issues that was going on with Minnesota. So they were going to protest. Now, I watched it live. I do not agree with actually walking in and protesting inside churches, even though they are welcome to everyone. It is the Lord's house. But I'm telling you, the shoe was on the other foot, and these were black churches. We would not want the Proud Boys storming in, protesting during our services. So, that I really don't agree with, but it was happening. And so because of that, Trump and the DOJ, Pam Bondi and everybody got all up in arms. And because Don Lemon has been a staunch, has been doing reports about what's been happening with the Trump, as we will call the Trump regime, since 2016. I mean, this is not new. Everybody who's been aware of this has been reporting on it. So because of Don Lemon, Trump, of course, took more of a disliking to this. And then, of course, recently, we have this whole thing going on with Nicki Minaj and Don Lemon. Nicki didn't like some of the things that Don Lemon had to say about her. Don Lemon didn't like some of the things that Nicki had to say about him. And of course, this is all due to when Nicki went to one of the Turning Point USA events and spoke. And it's a little bit of an outrage over that. So Don is not the only one who is not happy or feeling Nicki for doing that. I'm one of them. And I love Nicki's music. I actually like Nicki. Do I think this is a good look? Absolutely not. I wish she didn't do it. I don't know why she's doing it. I mean, I have my own suspicions, but we're keeping this about Don. So back to Don. So they arrested him. And Don Lemon and 3 other journalists I'm trying to say her name, coordinated attack on the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, Attorney General Pam Bondi said on a post on X on Friday. The ex-CNN anchor's attorney, Abe Lowell, said in a statement that Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles where he was covering the Grammy Awards. Instead of investigating the federal agents who unalived 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time and its attention and resources to this arrest, and that this is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case, Lowell said. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court, Lowell added. The arrest of one of the country's most recognizable journalists is the latest development in the federal government's unprecedented immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, in which 2 U.S. citizens have been unalived. Lemon was arrested by the FBI and Homeland Security Investigations in Beverly Hills at approximately midnight, according to a federal warrant that was issued in another district. Details of the charges against the 4 were not immediately available. However, the Justice Department promised to pursue charges against Lemon after the independent journalist covered the protest at a church on January 18th. A federal magistrate judge had previously rejected a criminal complaint against Lemon. A source familiar with the matter described Bondi as enraged by the decision. This arrest also allows the apprehension of 3 others: Nikema Levy Armstrong, Chantel Louisa Allen, and William Kelly, who disrupted the same church service in St. Paul. Demonstrators gathered at the services because its pastor, David Eastwood, will say the name again, the pastor of this church, David Easterwood, allegedly works for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The protesters say Easterwood is the acting director of an ICE field office in St. Paul's. The federal government cited the FACE Act, F-A-C-E Act, to justify the arrest of the 3 protesters. The federal statute prohibits the use of force or intimidation to anyone trying to access reproductive services, but also contains provisions that covers house of worships. But the prosecutors were released. But the protesters were released after a federal judge found the Trump administration offered no factual or legal support to justify 2 of the arrests. Don Lemon, prior to his arrest, said he stood by his reporting. If this much time and energy is going to be spent manufacturing outrage, it would be far better used investigating the tragic unaliving of Renee Nicole Good, the very issue that brought people into the streets in the first place, he said in a statement last week. The federal government has sent about 3,000 federal immigration agents to the Twin Cities over the last 2 months and arrested more than 3,000 undocumented immigrants, according to the Department of Homeland Security. But Department of Homeland Security are going to say what they want to say to make themselves look good. They may have arrested and detained 3,000 undocumented immigrants, but they definitely and certainly have arrested and detained more than over 3,000 American citizens. They're snatching American citizens off the streets as if this was Germany, Nazi Germany. They're looking for papers. What papers? We don't have papers. We have social security cards that we don't carry around for reasons of theft and fraud. We don't carry papers around. And then they tell us we have to have it. And whose rule is this? Because a lot of us need to know about these new rules if that's going to be the case. But that is not the case here in America. They want to scare us into submission. Know your rights, stand up for your rights, and do not let it happen. We here at Between the Blurred Lines will keep you updated with this when we know more about this story. And we'll keep you updated about a lot of these stories that are getting thrown in between the midst because there's a lot going on. The Trump administration wants to confuse and cause chaos. But a lot of us are smart, so stay on top of it, pay attention, be aware. Know your rights, people. I'll speak to you later. Bye-bye.